Before we start today's episode, we want to take a moment to honor a member of our team who passed away a few days ago. Our hearts are heavy, but we hold on to the love and connection we shared with him. As people in recovery, we deeply understand the pain and struggles that come with managing addiction, as well as the mental health challenges that often arise from trauma, substance abuse, and process addictions. If you're suffering, please know that you are not alone. We encourage you to seek help and talk to someone you trust. You can reach out to people in places like the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can call or text 988 or visit their website at www.988lifeline.org. Or the Trevor Project, you can visit thetrevorproject.org. You can also call them at 1-866-488-7386 or text them at 678-678. The Trevor Project is a nonprofit organization that focuses on suicide prevention and efforts among LGBTQ+ youth. Healing is possible when we connect with others. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other. We love you.
Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. My name's Anthony. I'm an addict and an alcoholic, another bozo on the bus, and I care about you.
Yes, and I'm LouiLou, and my pronouns are he and him, and I am in recovery for crystal meth and alcohol, and I am always in search of balance.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues sometimes used to separate us.
But you know what? Each week we strive to foster a brave space where we can engage in conversations centered around topics of recovery.
But before we do that, like, subscribe, ding that bell, tell your friends about us, rate us. But rate us only if you have 5 stars or nice things to say.
Just rate us.
Just rate us.
We want to grow in this.
We do want to grow in this. But like we've said before, if you have nasty things to say, you email us.
And now the disclosure.
The disclaimer.
Okay.
The thoughts and opinions expressed on At the CCC are alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are for general information purposes only. In other words, we are just a couple of friends behind a motherfucking mic here to entertain you.
Absolutely. You know what?
What?
I like that edit.
Yeah, it came naturally.
It came, switching those two around. So we'll do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna change that around. That makes
sense.
That
deserves a shoulder shimmy.
I know I do the shoulder shimmy. That's my right on.
So Louis, how are you?
I am good. I was not here last week. I missed you all.
Thank God for that.
I was in P-Town in Massachusetts. It was lovely. I mean, any opportunity to not be at work was wonderful. And I was flying out, so I didn't get a chance to watch the episode, and I still haven't watched the episode, so I don't have an excuse.
That's fine. You deserve breaks too.
How did it go?
It went really well. It was nice. It was Al-Anon, and we had Jordan's mom on. She was absolutely wonderful. She was an excellent example of, I think, like the gifts of Al-Anon.
Right on. And so how are you?
I'm good. I start my placement next week. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, I saw my schedule.
When do you start on the Monday?
On the 26th. Yeah.
Are you excited?
I am very excited. My first rotation is IOP with teenagers, and then my last 2 are like dual diagnosis and intensive inpatient.
Okay.
So I'm really, really excited.
Absolutely.
And so we have a guest here today.
We do. He was sitting all patiently, but good thing he didn't open his mouth like the last one, because we were going to cut him.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm all, introduce me.
Yeah. So what's your name?
My name is Paul.
Yeah.
And I am what?
You can say, well, your name's Paul.
Yeah, my name's Paul.
Yeah, how's your day, Paul? How are you doing?
Decent. Yeah.
I'm here. You are here. So we brought Paul on, and so this month, as everyone knows, is dedicated to doing the work. So today we're diving into adult children of alcoholics, or ACA. So if you grew up in a household where alcoholism or dysfunction was the norm, you might maybe not obviously, carry some emotional scars that still affect your life today. So ACA is a 12-step program designed to help people like us heal and break free from the patterns we developed as children, right? So in this episode, we'll explore what ACA is, why it's different from other recovery programs, and we're doing all of that with Paul today, because Paul is in ACA.
What up?
Hey, Paul.
What up?
So Paul.
Yes.
So we normally, let's do a little warm up. So normally we ask people that come on, we ask them 3 questions. Okay. And we give you 3 minutes to answer those questions.
Okay.
Okay. First question. Where are you from?
I'm from Southern California. Originally from Riverside and Palm Springs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Palm Springs.
Yeah.
Nice. And so what
Not really.
brought you to recovery? I mean, what was it the turning point?
So probably the turning point for me was I was homeless in San Francisco. Been that way for the past since 2021.
Okay.
So I've been up in the Bay Area and just kind of like roaming around in my
I love the
addiction.
tone in his voice. So look, that's pretty good. You're sounding good.
Uh, yeah, just kind of like, roaming around like we do. And it just got progressively worse. I got progressively isolated myself.
Mhm.
And it stopped being fun a long time ago. But at this point I was just maintaining my addiction without any benefit from it. Because for me, the drug was always been like a coping mechanism.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And so it all came to a head when I was I was over at Dolores Park.
Mhm.
I woke up at around 9 o'clock in the morning, a puddle of somebody else's piss
Oh, nice.
and a needle in my legs. So I was just
Oh,
like, there's
no.
got to be a better way than this,
Yeah.
subtle hints from the universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That was subtle.
yeah.
That's as subtle as it could have been.
One of my favorite things that you said, it was a couple weeks. I don't remember what. I think it was when we went rafting. One of my favorite things that you said was like, yeah, I used to be homeless and I used to interact more with like squirrels and animals than I did with people.
Oh yeah, because they're so much better.
Yeah.
They're a lot better than people.
Well, because when you were talking about like being isolated and like you really did kind of like move away from people.
Yeah, no.
Mhm.
It's just a byproduct of like I said, I do go to ACA because of a lot of trauma from my childhood. And that's kind of like made it hard to kind of relate to most people.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah.
Yeah. So we'll come back to ACA and
Of
trauma.
course.
There's so much room for trauma.
Mhm,
And then
yeah.
the last question is, what's your relationship with your higher power?
So my higher power, I like to say, is the universe. And my relationship kind of manifests itself in synchronicities. There's been way too many coincidences since I've been sober. It's way too it's way too many synchronicities for it to be just like for me to just ignore it or to be coincidental. So I really do think that my higher power provides me with these little signals or little green lights that kind of point me or say that I'm headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Nice.
I love that. That's
Yeah,
super relatable.
I know you're speaking my language because I feel the universe part and the synchronicities. I pay attention to.
Cute.
Yeah.
Cute.
Exactly.
All right. So let's fucking jump in.
Let's jump in.
So I've never been in ACA, but what I know about ACA, like at least what I've heard from like a lot of people is that it's like very intense.
Oh yeah.
It's very intense and it's like very formulaic. So can you say a little bit about like what meetings kind of like look and sound like?
Very quiet.
Really?
No. Well, sometimes. So the whole format of the ACA meeting really is like, there is no crosstalk. Like you don't thank people for sharing. You don't you don't comment on anybody else's share. People get very, very like emotional around that. And because it is a lot of delicate subjects, a lot of trauma that these people are trying to process, and most of these people didn't have like a safe space for them to voice these issues before.
Can I okay, so what is it about the meetings that makes it safe or makes people believe that it's safe? Because I know that we talk about this being a brave space. And the idea of being a brave space is that, for safe spaces, I can't control this. I can't, if I'm able to control every aspect of it and what people say or whatever, I can make it safe. But unfortunately, or fortunately with a brave space, it's like it still requires courage and on your part.
Oh yeah.
And so what is it about those spaces?
Well, I think it's the group conscience of just withholding any kind of like response or judgment. Because, you know, a lot of the things like that I have shared personally in ACA have been very like I didn't even know like I was going to say it at the time.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that I was able to say something that I've been like holding on to for like so long and have it just be out there and nobody comment on it and just like they just move on to the next person. It just feels really what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I mean, what you're making me think of is
Cathartic.
Cathartic,
Yeah.
yeah. What you're making me think of is how like if an ACA, since people are like working through traumas, it would feel to me very disruptive if you're sharing something really intense that you're processing and then you have people commenting on it.
Yeah, no.
You know, that just feels, that sounds like a fucking disaster.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So I love that. So it sounds like ACA is like, it has like an internal structure that creates as much safety as possible.
Yeah, it's a little intense at first. You know, I thought I was really uncomfortable with it in the beginning, just because like I want to like clap or I want to like, you know, finger snaps to like show my support. It just took me time to kind of like really understand like why that was in place.
It would seem also the more that you go, the more that you participate in that style, the more courageous you become.
Oh yeah, because you really do get that sense of healing. You know, when I had disclosed something that was very personal, and it's taken like years for me to like even come to terms with it, and the fact that I had just kind of word vomited it out, and then was able to like be in a room where nobody's running away and people weren't like judging me. It was, and I was able to process it, like, because vocalizing or, you know, just saying something takes a lot of power out of it.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like the beauty of that is that, especially when it wasn't planned, it's like some things come when they're supposed to come.
Yeah, exactly.
At the right time. Like it seems like everything is in tune, like the universe. It's
absolutely.
Like, and you have an opportunity, and it's great if you take that opportunity, but you know, you just be patient for the next one to come up. That's happened a lot here. I mean, it's like all of a sudden it's like we melt away our kind of walls.
I mean, I feel like I've done so much kind of like processing on air with Louis, right? There's just like something that happens when like you feel comfortable. So I want to go back a little bit about, like you were saying, it can be intense. So well, I actually want to go further back than that. So can you explain, or like,
what were you like when you were a baby?
When well, what was it like? I guess what were the circumstances or like the motivators for you to go to ACA? Because it sounds like you went to like substance recovery first.
Oh yeah. So when I was in rehab, one of the counselors kind of like noticed a theme with me, and she actually recommended CODA, which was Codependency Anonymous, one of the other hush hush 12-step programs.
That's definitely intense.
It's something. It was one of the first programs where I like read the list of identifiers. I'm like, oh shit, fuck, yeah, I got a problem. But she also recommended ACA, and because you know, she went to that program herself, and you know, we connected on a different level, talking about, you know, past traumas and stuff. And she really highly recommended that I have at least 6 months under my belt before I got started. But what prompted me to go was that I knew that my addiction, my usage was always like secondary. Like it was always, there's always the big underlying issue of why I used, because like I go to like the CMA groups and like people are talking about their sex addiction, or you know, they're partying, and it was like, oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. I wish I had that experience. I didn't. And so, you know, kind of jealous, but so yeah, I didn't really I didn't really like identify with a lot of the stories. And so like while I do love CMA, I knew that my story isn't really like a lot of people's, especially in the Castro. So I just decided to check out ACA, and you know, and it was like, those are my people. And I immediately felt a connection.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. And then so you were talking about a little bit about like what sharing looks and sounds like. So I imagine that if the program were just about going to meetings and processing that, like that would feel a little incomplete to me. So what are like, because I imagine that there's like step work around
Oh,
this, right? Like there's an entire, so can you say more about that?
From my understanding, I've only been doing the ACA for about 3 months here, but so it's not a standard like sponsee relationship. Like it's a they refer to them as fellow travelers. And
Interesting.
it's people, a group of people just doing the step work together. I've been a part of a couple of the groups. I've showed up to one or two, and yeah, and we work out of a yellow book.
You brought a yellow book. I can reach for it. You keep talking.
I love it. The fellow travelers.
The fellow
12 steps of adult children. And it's just a workbook like, the NA workbook, but you do it in a group, and there is something healing to that.
Oh,
yeah.
And so it's a yellow book, and on the cover it says 12 steps of adult children, and on the front it says like there's a tree, and it says perfectionism, mistrust, procrastination, isolation, terrified of abandonment. Oh, girl.
Yeah, no.
Addictive
So
lives.
it is an intense program. It's a whole they have what they call the laundry list in there, and it's just ways in which some of ACA members trauma has manifested into their lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really good. So you said you said that someone had recommended you go to ACA. What were the experiences that you were having at the time where you were like, this is not sustainable?
Clarify.
Yeah. So like, for example, I was drinking and using, I wasn't like showing up to work, I was lying, I was cheating, I was like, so things came to a head.
Talking to squirrels.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Raccoons.
Right, raccoons. Okay, that makes sense.
Squirrel. So in this case, ACA is not, obviously it's not like a substance program, right? So you aren't looking at substances. What were the kind of like behaviors or circumstances that you were finding yourself in where you're like, I need help?
Well, it's good question. It was just a second. It was just like maybe.
Yeah.
It was just a need for me to not. I didn't want to suffer anymore. I didn't want to be silent on this. Like I said, I didn't really relate to a lot of the CMA shares. And I knew that I needed to do the work on myself. I wasn't in therapy at the time.
Okay.
And so I just needed some kind of outlet. I needed to really get down to the root cause of my addiction, which was the childhood trauma that I had faced as
yeah. And so when you started ACA, so what I'm thinking of is, how when people start CMA or AA, it's kind of like a gradual process, right? Like you're told, find a sponsor, go to 90 and 90, don't drink in between meetings. Are there things like that with ACA?
Well, they do start off the meetings by saying like, this is a hard program. We recommend that you go to 6 meetings before you decide whether this program is for you.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, that's the way that they go about it.
Was there ever a point where you were like, I'm not doing this?
There was a couple instances where I'm just like, and I hate to judge, and I hate to like pass, or hate to. Girl. I took
my. Anthony's dying over there. Lemonade. Maybe you shouldn't drink it so fast.
I took this up so you guys
like you breathe in air, not lemonade. Okay. Love it.
All right, I'm back. Go ahead.
I lost my train of thought.
Okay, yeah, because Louis had so much to say.
No, I'm sorry. It's like we were talking about like, was there ever a time
raccoons,
and you saying you didn't want to be judgmental and
so there was a time when I kind of thought
raccoons.
I hate to take other people's inventory, and
but
I
we
hate
do.
I'll take yours.
Yeah, give yourself some grace. Okay,
go ahead.
It's just natural, and there were a couple instances where I was listening to somebody else's share. I'm just like, is this really what it is? Is this? And I felt bad because I don't know. People need a soapbox. People need that safe space. but you know, it was just like, that's
Right.
not
So
really
what
a-
helped you get past that?
Um,
Because it's like that's always going to happen.
oh yeah, no. So what really helped me get past that was something had happened a couple months ago
Mhm.
that really triggered a lot of heavy feelings. Something about something with my family. It was very personal, and I knew that I needed to say something about that. And it's not really it didn't really like relate to CMA.
Yeah.
And so I really saw that the only option for me to like go and process this was at the ACA group. And then I started to talk about it, and then I was like maybe a minute into my share, and then all of a sudden like the waterworks came, and I just like broke down. And it it felt uncomfortable, and but it felt like safe.
Yeah.
You know, people were there. I had witnesses to my experience, and that was really like the one of the defining moments for me, like choosing to stay in ACA. You know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I almost feel and the way they talk about like the not people not giving feedback or whatever, the way that I share in any meeting, especially if I'm going through something, is I just share.
Mhm.
I share in a general way, but I share how I'm going to share without being concerned about how it's going to affect positively or negatively someone else. And in doing that, I pay attention to the fact that I'm doing that.
Mhm.
So that means that everybody gets to do that. Like, I'm going to give you your 3 minutes. I don't
Yeah.
care what you talk about and how you talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's allowed me to kind of most of the time reserve my judgment. That's why I say give yourself grace because you're not perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm going to be critical, but if I don't act on it, I'm good. It's like if I don't come over and say, "Bitch, the next time, why don't you share something that might be a little interesting?"
Yeah. It feels like a lot of these CMA shares are centered around like, you know, feel good or like and it feels like kind of
Fluffy, like
just like this isn't real. There's no way that
'cause
life can
I
be
think
this
a lot of it
great.
is
Right.
like a lot
Yeah.
of it is like sometimes folks aren't ready to really
Do the hard
do
work.
the work that reveals like and and then that's the gift of being in the program for a while. You can tell when people get to that place where all of a sudden something starts to happen.
Yeah.
Because they get angry. Like I love it when people get pissed off, when they get angry in a way where they're angry but not angry where they're destructive, but angry where they're doing the work. Like not going to I'm sick of it. No, you can tell the difference between people who are just
Yeah, if
performing.
you live your life for no other reason, live
Yeah.
it out of spite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you talk, like, not when you or we, let me start over here. So when we think about doing the work in ACA, there are 12 steps in ACA, right? And you're working out of the yellow book,
Mhm.
right? Is the yellow book, like, I'm not going to open it because there's probably stuff in there,
Oh, it's fine.
but so like
You can't
in-
read my handwriting. It's chicken
okay,
scratch.
but so I'm noticing, for example, that like there are like templates
Mhm.
that you go through. Can you kind of like walk us through a little bit like what one of the things would be in here? So like, is this, for example, I saw the one back here, it looks like an inventory.
Oh yeah. So made a decision, turn or will and lies over. Wait, where is it?
So
at?
this is step 3.
Yeah.
So here it says,
Um
so if we go to, you want to go
I
to,
didn't get that far. Let's
put your mouth
let's-
against the mic.
Yeah, I didn't get that far. Let's
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go back a
stick
little bit.
some
So,
direction,
but it
yeah.
looks like, okay. So for folks who aren't familiar with the text,
Mhm.
it's
The way
actually
he's-
kind of hefty.
The way he
It's
said
like a,
put your mouth is like making me feel some sort of way.
yeah.
I'm all
So you go, so step 1, so you have the 12 steps, the laundry list.
Yeah,
So
the laundry list is actually 14 different identifiers that are common amongst adult children.
Okay, so what are they? Can you read them?
So yeah, the characteristics that we seem to have in common due to being brought up in an alcoholic household are we become isolated and afraid to tell. We become isolated and afraid of people and authority figures. We became approval seekers and lost our identity in the process. We are frightened by angry people and any personal criticism. We either become alcoholics, marry them, or both, or find another compulsive personality, such as a workaholic, to fulfill our sick abandonment needs.
Work.
We need We live life from viewpoint of victim and are attracted by that weakness in our love and friendship relationships.
Whoa.
We have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility, and it's easier for us to be concerned with others rather than ourselves. This enables us not to look too closely at our own faults. We get guilt feelings when we stand up for ourselves instead of giving in to others. We become addicted to excitement. We confuse love and pity and tend to love people that we can pity and rescue.
Oh my God.
We have stuffed our feelings from our traumatic childhood and have lost our ability to feel or express our feelings because it hurts so much. Denial.
Mm-hmm.
We judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
We are dependent personalities who are terrified of abandonment and will do anything to hold on to a relationship in order to not experience painful abandonment feelings, which we received from living with sick people who were never there for us emotionally. That was a mouthful.
That's all right.
Alcoholism is a family disease, and we become para-alcoholics and took on the characteristics of that disease, even though we did not pick up the drink. And para-alcoholics are reactors rather than actors.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the first time I've ever heard that list.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
like,
that's
here's a fucking mirror.
That's
you.
really heavy.
But it really is helpful, because it's like at one point I mistakenly I was thinking, well, all of us are in some ways adult children, but the detail in that, because it's like
It's like very like specific.
yeah, I don't like, because I was thinking it's like going through that laundry list. I'm all, maybe some of them that I can relate to, but the others I'm all.
Oh yeah, like I've went in and I've highlighted the ones. It's not like every ACA has like all of these, but it's definitely the most popular, or not popular, the most common traits that we all share.
So then would you, like, I come from an alcoholic family. The alcoholism and drug addiction runs through my family, and I have some challenges. Like just recently, I was realizing at a share, and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago on here. One of the individuals shared about the violence in his family and talked about specifically like that point where my parents, they were arguing, and that was fine as long as I could hear them. And then all of a sudden the silence was deafening. And that part hit me so hard.
Yeah.
And I was feeling some sort of way. And it, I've been in the program for a while, so I was able to stick around instead of running like I may have done in the past and talk about it. But I think that it was like something where I'm like, I haven't dealt with that. So in all that, my question is, do you think there's benefit to folks who have grown up in alcohol, even if they don't, even if they can't relate completely to the whole laundry list?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of healing that takes place in that group.
Go ahead,
yeah.
keep going.
Do
you want to take a second? Because we have a comment.
Yeah, we have a comment.
Yeah, let's take that
please.
comment. Alex writes,
Mhm.
after I started my journey in recovery, my family's toxicity was ever more apparent. It seemed that I was changing for the better and they weren't. How do I rebuild a relationship with my family despite their reluctance to grow and change their behavior?
Mhm.
I have an answer. Do you have an answer?
Go ahead.
At least to the way I relate to it. Thank you for your question, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.
And so you've actually said this too before about how, our relationships change with other people as we change. Right.
Yes.
So like, and actually if I move away from recovery for a second and I think about the way like family systems work, is like one of the things that we know is that sometimes when you have an entire family system, if you have one person that changes, gets healthy, there is a way that kind of like ripples into the family. Now, that isn't to say that everyone's going to get healthy or that things are going to get better, but there is a kind of like a ripple that happens. And maybe that's like people are realizing the boundaries that you have. People are realizing like, oh, this person has come into their own, et cetera, right? Like, so you don't, my first answer to that is that you don't have to try to change other people's behaviors. You just change like your perspective of those people and what your own behaviors are. And I think a big part of that too is the expectation, right? It's like
lower the expectation.
Yeah, you lower the expectation. And there's also that like the tried and true prayer, change me, heal them, so that's my answer to that.
So ACA has a really interesting serenity prayer, actually.
Yeah, what's it sound like?
No, it's the same thing, but like instead of like the things that God grant me the serenity to accept the
Things
people
okay.
I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me.
Oh, I love
So
that.
So it's all about like accepting,
Yeah.
because one of the steps in ACA is taking a blameless inventory of your parents,
Okay.
and just kind of realizing that they are human and did the best that they can, and try to take some of the, or at least from my interpretation of it, is to try to take some of the blame out of them, or that one. I don't know.
Does that inventory come early on or later on?
It's later on.
Because well, yeah, because I was thinking it's like
Same inventory.
when I find myself talking to sponsees about this idea that, you know, when we go through this process and we realize that they're human, and I've had a number of sponsors. Oh, hell no. No, this is not a conversation we're having. I'm not ready for it. I'm not ready to forgive. I don't care if I had a part in it. I'm not ready.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Yeah. You know what? I wanted to go back to the characteristics or the list.
Yeah.
There was a talk I went to years ago by Judith Butler. She's a famous philosopher. She wrote like Gender Trouble, and
That's how I am every time every time he drops a name. I'm all,
well,
wah, wah, wah,
well,
wah,
it's
wah.
not the point. Oh my God. Well, you know, the reason why I'm bringing her up is because number one, it's not my idea. It's Judith Butler's idea. But one of the things I heard at a talk she gave, she said, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, we don't exist without definition, right? And so the things start to exist when we give them language or we define them. And I feel like that makes things so much more containable, right? So when I heard you read through that list, I was thinking to myself, like, they're like, just reading the list, it feels like you're being seen.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that by itself, and my understanding of trauma is that to be witnessed is a pretty phenomenal experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just knowing that that it's, you know, it's sad, but just knowing that it's like not as uncommon as I thought. Like I thought I was the only one going through like some of these fucking bullshit. But yeah, when I read it on paper, it was just like, oh my God, there's more. They're just like me.
Yeah. And there's a way that like, and there's this really great book. It's called Trauma and Recovery. I'll find it when you guys are talking. But one of the things that she writes, it's like Martha, God, I forgot her last. Anyway, so one of the things that she writes is that trauma, or like perpetrators of trauma, one of the things that they do is they tell you that it's not happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Gaslight
And there's
you.
Yeah. And there's a way that the denial of your experience can be so upsetting, especially if you're a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. You know, like your parents are your world. And so you're having this experience, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'll make that
the
less
beginning of not trusting your own reality.
right. Well, that's because your reality is what your parents present to you.
Absolutely.
Right. Like they're shaping your reality, and what you know of the world, you know, through relationship through them, you know, in the kind of most basic sense of the word. And so if you're having an experience as a child and no one's protecting you and no one's defending you, like there's a way that in order to adapt, you kind of like take that on. And one of the things like I've experienced myself is that like when you grow up and you start to like look at things and you look back and you go, hold up, this was really fucked up. This should have never happened. And I remember the one time like I brought it up to my grandmother and I was like, hey, there was this stuff, and there was this denial of that it ever happened. And I remember walking away from that thinking like, oh my God, it's happening all over again. Right. So the takeaway is that there is something very powerful about there being language and about being seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what does recovery look like? Recovery look like in ACA? So in 12-step, you know, you're abstaining from substances, right? So what does ACA look like? What does recovery look like?
That's a good question. Maybe I haven't been in the program long enough to
I think you have
witness that for myself. But what I can say is that like it's really helped me kind of have like one of the goals is to become your own loving parent.
Okay.
That's one of the promises in ACA, you become that loving parent that you never had. And you nurture that inner child that's been wounded all this time. And you also like it's about self-acceptance. It's about loving loving the worst parts of you, allowing the worst parts of you to be loved, and just being compassionate and understanding with yourself. And for me, that kind of manifested into having to put up strong boundaries, not because with my family, not because like I don't want to have a relationship with them, but just because I know that they are not conducive to the way that I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And then being okay with that.
Yeah.
When you say thank you for that. And when you say being a loving parent to yourself, it sounds like the goal is to have emotional serenity or emotional sobriety.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess then, does ACA use like relapse language, or is there anything?
That's interesting. I don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
really
I've
sure.
never
It's
heard
same
of it
thing with,
before.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
same thing with CODA. Well, I mean, CODA is kind of easily more measurable, like if you
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but I'm not really sure about ACA. That's a good question.
I
I'll have to
like-
ask Stephen.
So
Mm.
when you were talking about setting, like specifically what you're doing with your parents,
Yeah.
Or your family, setting up strong boundaries, that goes back to Alex's question, like how do I deal with? Sometimes you set up clear boundaries, boundaries that are clear. Like if you know for a fact that the person is not able to meet you where you are, or able to, like, I was talking to somebody, you got to get, for me, I had to get to a place where this life that I was establishing for myself, I loved it so dearly, and I didn't want to let go of it, and I wasn't willing to let anyone compromise what I was working on. Yeah.
You said something a little bit. There's two things I want to go back to. So one of the things you said was that you weren't in therapy yet.
Yeah.
And what I appreciated about that disclosure is that what it makes me think of is that okay, big picture. So in an ideal world, everyone who needs therapy would get therapy.
Yeah.
Right. Ideal world.
I don't have a problem.
Huh?
No.
Therapy would be more accessible, right? And what I like about what you're sharing, though, is that like you weren't in therapy, but you sought support.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. And I think I want to just highlight that, because I think that, one of the things I was saying earlier is like, you don't have to suffer alone, right? Like regardless of where you are in the country, there are ways like to connect, etc. So I guess I just wanted to highlight that, is that like that's a great strength to say like, yeah, maybe I'm not in therapy, but like I can find it in this other way.
Yeah, no, it definitely is one of the driving factors for me to have gone, because it's such a long wait list to get into like any kind of therapy, especially when you're like
on Medi-Cal.
Yeah.
So was it always kind of the plan to go into therapy, or was it as a result of all the things that you have been doing, you thought, oh, therapy is something that I need?
I knew I needed therapy for a while.
Yeah.
And I funny enough, I got into therapy shortly after starting ACA.
Okay.
And I just kind of use both of them in conjunction with each
Oh,
other.
absolutely.
And
I find when I'm working with sponsees who have, I prefer working with sponsees who are in therapy, because I realize that I'm not trained, and there are some things, especially when we get to the 4-step, when we get to that point where we have to start looking at our part and stuff.
some people are just unable to.
I can rattle that,
Yeah,
but I can't, and I try to give people a love grace with that. Like, I realize that sometimes it seems as though folks are procrastinating, putting stuff off, being defiant or whatever, and usually it's because it's something I'm not ready to deal with.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that person to get it started. Like, I can open up the box, but I can't close it. And so,
yeah, that's a really good point. Were you going to say something, Paul?
Oh, no.
Okay. That's a really good point, right? Like, in my experience and being in the rooms, like often I'll hear people share, and I sometimes get worried because I'm like, there's something, what you're sharing is like deeper. And I'm of the opinion that, like, yes, the 12 steps can get you sober.
Mhm.
And there are sometimes things where you need outside help, you know,
Yeah.
like clinical depression is real. Schizoaffective disorder is real. There are all of these things that are very real that, like, we can't just rely on the 12 steps for.
Absolutely.
And so, that's a shout out for outside help.
Yeah, it's a total shout out.
Yeah. Shout out for outside help.
You know, I'm always talking about it's like
What?
I don't always want to give what I've established in my years of living. Not everybody can appreciate it.
Over 100%. Yeah.
And so it's like, and that's why I can appreciate the no crosstalk or whatever, because there would be nothing worse than somebody, even if it not what their intentions are, but to diminish or to try to devalue what you have shared, like that.
Yeah, there is a way that sometimes meetings can get very messy.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Well, I was at a meeting recently where, did I tell you about this right?
No,
I was at a meeting recently where someone shared, right? And they were talking about like recovery and they're like celebrating a birthday. Tell me why. Another person raised their hand right after, and they had like a very pointed share, and it was something along the lines of like, some people are here talking about X, Y, and Z, and they're just hypocrites and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck? But that's the thing, is that meetings can, like, anyway, the point is that there are some.
I just wanted to give hugs.
Yeah.
Do
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
like, there's a way that like some meetings can like really.
No, exactly.
And that's why, you need other support.
And that's where this, like, it's not safe,
right?
Because folks are doing whatever, taking things personally, and not, I'm like, and it's not easy.
No, it isn't. It isn't. Go what?
Oh, ACA really is a safe space for you.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. No, you're doing great, Paul.
But you got to give yourself some credit, because it's like you're practicing courage, like even fear of or whatever. You're showing up consistently, and like, it's not always that easy. This is a voluntary gig, and it's hard work.
This isn't paying.
No, the 12 steps.
Well, obviously it's. I know exactly. Obviously, it's paying you in goodwill and whatever.
Paul's doing a great job.
I know, Paul, you're doing a wonderful job.
So there was one other.
Now.
I felt really. I don't know if the word is. What am I feeling? What I'm thinking of is. So you said the word, like, loving the worst parts of you.
Yeah.
And when you said that, it made me think of like the worst parts. When I think about what are my worst parts, like what I'm actually thinking about are like the most hurt parts of myself, like the parts, like the places where like I suffer, and how, like, when I was drinking and using, the places where I suffered, those were the things that showed up as like anger, or they showed up as like cutting people off out of my life. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, actually, my therapist today, told me that therapy isn't about becoming the best version of yourself, but allowing the worst version of yourself to be loved.
I love that. Right.
I love that.
And I think that when I think about like worst parts, I think about like the parts that hurt me. Right. Like, I'm not contradicting your therapist. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good.
Peace, Stephen. That's
I know. We've been into it. It's like, we gotta land this plane, huh?
We do have to land this plane.
Oh, thank God.
Okay, ready? And Stephen, that's your cue. No, fool.
Wow, check please.
Oh, wow. Asleep at the wheel.
I know. So
Okay, Stephen.
So the Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help people change their lives by supporting personal growth.
Yes, and our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community, opportunity, and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us, at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
Yes, and tune in every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when we go live on our Castro Country Club Facebook and YouTube channels.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.